Today we're going to talk about what podcast you should be subscribed to if you are a collector of action figures. Hey everyone, welcome to 𝑘𝐈𝐒𝐻𝑒𝐿, your source for all things nerdy. My name is Matt, and I will be your captain today. Today we're going to talk about action figure podcasts. So if you're new to the action figure collecting game and need to get some information or learn where the news sources are, or if you're like me, older action figure collector, but just want to find more people to talk to about or listen to because not a super popular hobby, then you're in luck. Today that's what we're going to talk about. I've gone through my iTunes and I've picked out what I think are the absolute best podcasts that you guys should be listening to if you're action figure collectors. Now, a short disclaimer, some of these are, I guess, specific to a certain toy line is the way to put it. So I have a couple that I've picked out that are only if you collect or want to collect Star Wars toys. Then there's a couple that are only if you're a wrestling fan and collect wrestling figures. At least I assume if you're a wrestling figure collector, you're probably a fan, right? I would assume so. And then last but not least, I picked out a couple of general news ones. Now as a bonus, I'm also going to talk about my favorite YouTube channels, that's not 𝑘𝐈𝐿, of course, for toy news, reviews, and commentary. Now, to be honest, that's where I get most of my news that's not like line specific. So stay tuned to the end for that. So we're going to start off by talking about Star Wars podcasts, so Star Wars toy podcasts specifically. So the first one I want to talk about, it's the first podcast I ever heard. It's Star Wars Action News. I freaking love it when they have new episodes. And therein lies my complaint. We don't get very many new episodes anymore. We used to get a new episode like every week. I think last year we got like 5. Artie and Marjorie are fantastic hosts. They do a really professional job. It's a very clean podcast as far as just like audio quality. Go check it out. I can't promise you they're going to put much up, but when they do put stuff up, you're going to love it. The second podcast I'm going to recommend to you guys does go up a lot, and that's Jedi Business Talk. Again, very polished, very professional, almost has like a documentary feel to it. I really enjoy it when it comes up. It is heavy on commentary, so much more so than news. The host is very honest about his opinions, and I enjoy hearing them. And the third Star Wars podcast I recommend to you is The Sandcrawler with Dengar Dan and Mike Tarkin. These guys seem like they're probably about my age, middle age. They're pretty entertaining. They talk about the news, what's going on. They give their opinions on things, and they talk about just general Star Wars news that's going on in the world. So they're a fun listen. So make sure you give them a subscribe. Now, when it comes to wrestling figure podcasts, I have 2 that I'm going to recommend to you. And honestly, they're both great. The first one is the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast. So this one's actually hosted by 2 WWE superstars. If you watch wrestling, you probably do. It's Matt Cardona, which is Zack Ryder, and then it's Kurt Hawkins, whose real name I can't remember, because I'm a mark. So these guys are used to being on camera and it shows. They go through the news, they have reviews, they have all sorts of different reoccurring segments like the Incarnation of Domination, which is where they'll pick the best figure of a specific wrestler, going back forever. They have their own Hall of Fame that they put together for wrestling figures. It's a ton of fun. There's a great community around it. If you haven't checked it out yet, go hit subscribe, then drop me a message in the comments to thank me later, because you're going to love it. The second wrestling figure podcast I'm going to recommend, I only recently discovered. So if you have Netflix and you've seen The Toys That Made Us, which if you haven't, go watch it. It's awesome. It's basically a documentary about different action figure series lines from the 80s and 90s, but it's really entertaining the way it's put together. Well, on the wrestling figure episode from this last season, they had these 2 brothers on from the Fully Posable podcast. They are Scott and Jeff, I believe. I always want to say Matt and Jeff like the Hardy Boys, but that's not it. Anyway, Scott and Jeff are great. They're about my age, couple of West Coast guys who've just been collecting wrestling figures for a long time. They go back to where I go back to, which is the early 90s and the Hasbro days. So they're a lot of fun to listen to, and check it out if you haven't already. Last but not least, I want to talk about the general news podcasts that I recommend. So I got 2 for you. The first one is Collecting Weekly. This one is just a general news podcast about a bunch of guys who collect Star Wars toys, and they also talk about other things. They actually put up a lot of shows, so I'm kind of selective about what ones I listen to. I listen to the main Collecting Weekly show where they kind of run through the news, but you might want to kind of go through and figure out what you like and don't like with them. The other one is my not safe for work recommendation, and that is the Open Your Figures podcast. As you can imagine, these guys are proponents of collecting your figures loose. Or as they say on the Major Wrestling Figure podcast, let them breathe. Check it out, Open Your Toys. They have a website, openyourtoys.com. I really enjoy their show. Don't listen to it around your children, though. Now, as I said earlier, I do get most of my general news for toys and what's going on in that world through YouTube. So there's 3 channels that I recommend you subscribe to right away. The first is the Froosh. I can never say it. But the host, Robo, really love him. He's got a great personality. He has a lot of passion for action figures, you can tell. He's not just doing this to do this. Like, the guy nerds out on screen, and I love it because I feel like we're best friends. He reviews a lot of figures, and he's very honest about it, so a lot of the time, if I'm on the fence about something I want to buy, I go and I check out his review, and if he says that the last version was good enough or he doesn't recommend it, I listen to him, because generally I find his opinion to be pretty accurate. The next one is Pixel Dan. He's been around for a bit. He's pretty popular. You might already have seen him before. The reason I love his channel is because he gets some serious inside scoops at all the conventions. So whether it's New York Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con, Toy Fair, dude gets, like, behind the scenes, gets pictures that nobody else has. I think it was San Diego last year, where he actually got to interview the guy who did the design work and managed a new NECA Ninja Turtles cartoon line that came out, and it was really good. I really enjoyed hearing that. I didn't see it anywhere else, so highly recommend Pixel Dan. Last but not least is Galaxy of Toys. Now, this isn't so much a news podcast. This is more, he's got reviews, he's got lists like top 10 play sets, top 10 figures of the 80s, all sorts of crazy lists that I really enjoy. But the thing I really like about Galaxy of Toys is his history videos, where he'll do histories of certain toy lines, and his start collecting videos. So he's done videos on, like, how to start collecting Marvel Legends, which is a huge thing to enter into. These things have been going on since the early 2000s, so if you're new to it, it's overwhelming. And he breaks down, like, hey, go get this figure, this figure, this figure. It'll cost you $100, and boom, now you have a starter collection, and you're not broke. So I highly recommend going to check out Galaxy of Toys. Guys, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. New videos every Tuesday and Thursday. I have some really cool content planned for you, and I'm really looking forward to getting it up soon. Until next time, stay nerdy.